Hello there, first graders. This is Miss Kelly here again for your next literacy lesson. This is the video for April 10th. And today I'm really excited because we're going back to our story, A Walk on the Moon, but today we're going to practice a little bit more with cause and effect. You might have heard of cause and effect before. We've studied it in class a few times. Cause and effect are the why and what. We think of cause as the why something happens. Effect is what happens, what ends up happening because of the cause. So here I have a couple examples for you. Why is the little girl crying? Because her ice cream fell. Or we could say, because her ice cream fell, the little girl is crying. Same here. This is Tim's and it's his birthday. So he got lots of presents. Or Tim got lots of presents because it's his birthday. The one event tells why and the other event tells what, and we call it cause and effect. So we're going to go back to our story today, A Walk on the Moon, and we're going to look at some of the key events that happened in the story and why they happened, or the effect, what happened because of these key events. Let's get started by reading through our story. I'm going to have the computer read the whole time. You'll follow along with the highlighted word. Afterwards, we'll go back and Miss Kelly is going to show you how to identify cause and effect.
A Walk on the Moon.
On July 16th, 1969, the spacecraft Apollo 11 blasted off into space. 3 astronauts inside the spacecraft took off for the moon. They wanted to be the first people to ever land on the moon. Millions of people watched on TV as Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, and Buzz Aldrin made their 4-day journey.
The spacecraft was launched from the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
Armstrong and Aldrin moved into a smaller craft called the Eagle for the moon landing. The 2 men saw that the Eagle was heading for a huge pile of rough boulders or rocks. They were able to steer it to a smooth area. A cloud of moon dust rose up as the Eagle landed safely.
The Eagle landed on 4 legs and had a ladder for the astronauts to climb down.
People back home were glued to their TVs. They saw Neil Armstrong climb down the Eagle's ladder. He became the first person to step onto the moon. He described the soil as a fine, dusty powder. The moon has less gravity than Earth, so bouncing around was easier than walking.
When Neil Armstrong stepped on the moon, he said, "That's one small step for a man, one giant leap for mankind."
For almost 3 hours, Armstrong and Aldrin explored the moon's surface. All around them were craters or large holes. They did not find any water, but there were lots of rocks. They collected moon soil and rocks to take back to Earth. Then the astronauts rejoined the Apollo 11 spacecraft and headed home.
The astronauts left an American flag on the moon. It is a reminder of the great accomplishment.
Okay, so now that we've refreshed our brain on what had happened in our story, we're going to go back and we're going to use what we know about the story and the key events to help us identify cause and effect. Remember, just like I explained before, cause is why it happens, and the effect is what happens? So here, I've already identified the cause. We know 3 astronauts set off for the moon on July 16th, 1969. Now I need to think in my head, what happened because these men set off for the moon? These 3 astronauts set off. What was the effect that happened? When I was thinking, in our story, it said that millions of people were watching from home while these men took off. So that's my effect. 3 astronauts set off for the moon July 16, 1969. So millions of people watched on TV. Or I could do it the other way. I can say millions of people watched on TV because 3 astronauts set off for the moon. Do you see what I'm doing to help myself identify cause and effect? I need to use my brain and what we know from the story. I'm going to help again with this next one. Follow along and let's see if you can do it next time. This time I don't know what the cause is, but I know what the effect is. It says, men steered the Eagle away and landed safely. So I know, the men steered the Eagle away. I need to think why. I'm missing the cause. Why did the men steer the Eagle away? Do you know? I think when we were reading the story, it said that they saw that the Eagle was going to hit a pile of rocks or boulders. And that made them steer away and land safely. I got it correct. It said the Eagle was heading for a pile of rocks. So the men steered the Eagle away and landed safely. Again, but you could say it the other way. The men steered the Eagle away and landed safely because they saw that the Eagle was heading for a pile of rocks. Okay, Miss Kelly helped a lot with these last two. I'm going to try and see if you're able to identify it. These next examples. Here, I have given you the cause. You need to figure out what is the effect. So, what happened because Armstrong climbed down the ladder to the moon? Think in your head. What happened because Armstrong climbed down the ladder to the moon? Okay, let's see if you got it right. He became the first man on the moon to ever walk on the moon, is what I should say. He became the first man to walk on the moon. So, because Armstrong climbed down the ladder to the moon, he became the first man to walk on the moon. Good job, first grade. Let's try our next example. This time I've given you the effect and you need to figure out why it happened. Why is bouncing easier than walking for the astronauts? Think back to our story. Why is bouncing easier than walking for the astronauts? Let's check and see if you got it right. Because the moon has less gravity. Bouncing is easier than walking for the astronauts because the moon has less gravity. Or you could say, the moon has less gravity, so bouncing is easier than walking. Beautiful job, first grade. We know that events are connected and the cause is why something happens and the effect is what happens because of it. And they're always connected. We can identify cause and effect in a lot of different stories and a lot of different parts of our lives. But let's move on to writing today. I'm really excited because for writing today, we're going to do narrative writing. Now, what I also want us to remember from narrative writing, a lot of you should remember this organizer that we've used before. There are things that we want to include in narrative writing, like our character and setting. We want to know who are we talking about and where is the story taking place. We also want to have the problem. What's going to be the problem in the story? What's the main event that happens in the story? Then we need a solution. How is the problem resolved? What happens in the story? And finally, we need a conclusion. Okay, I wanted to show you how this might look in a story. So again, I have the 4 things I know I need in a good narrative story. I need the characters and a setting. I need a problem, I need somehow for that problem to be resolved or fixed, and I need a conclusion or something that I learned at the end of the story. I'm going to read what I wrote about being in the garden. Just like yesterday, I'm going to focus on being in a garden. You're going to write your story about what it was like to land on the moon. So you're thinking in your head, you're an astronaut. What would it be like to land on the moon? I'm going to be writing about what it was like in the garden. Follow along and we'll go back over how Miss Kelly was able to write her story. My Day in the Garden by Miss Kelly. Okay, first up, I need to make sure I talked and introduced my characters and the setting. One day, my grandma and I decided to have a picnic in the garden in her backyard. Do we know who I'm talking about? Yeah, my grandma and I. Do we know the setting of our story? Yeah, we're in the garden in her backyard. Okay, let's see. Was I able to identify a problem in my story? Let's keep reading. At first, when I looked around, the garden was a mess. It was full of weeds and trash that didn't belong. So yeah, I told the reader my problem. My problem is the garden is a mess. Let's see if I wrote a solution, how my problem gets fixed. After that, we decided to clean up and weed the garden before we ate. We worked hard together for an hour. Finally, we got to eat lunch. Did I describe how we fixed the problem? Yeah, my grandma and I spent an hour cleaning up and weeding the garden. Let's see my conclusion. Now the garden was the perfect picnic spot. I chose that as my conclusion because it wrapped up the story. It told the reader that I was done writing and what happened in the end. The garden was a perfect picnic spot. So you see how Miss Kelly used all 4 components of a narrative writing to be able to write her story. You are going to be doing the same thing. You're going to have characters in a setting, a problem, a solution, and a conclusion. If you'd like to include a lesson, you can do that as well. But you're going to be writing, what was it like to be on the moon? What was it like to go to the moon and walk on the moon? So imagine who's going to be your characters and setting. Most of you should be writing about the moon as your setting. What was your problem, your solution, and your conclusion? I can't wait to see this amazing work, my friends. Make sure you're writing at least 1, 2, 3, 4 sentences for your narrative writing today. I can't wait to see these amazing stories, so make sure to send your work in to Miss Kelly or Miss Finney. Have a great day.